Hello and welcome to the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson. That's me. The previous time that I had my guest on, it went way further than what I even expected. But if I'm being honest, when the podcast ministry was first laid on my heart, I prayed about it, and my friend's name was one of the first things that I saw in my head. And believe it or not, when I got the opportunity to interview him the first time, I had like no idea what the Lord would do with it. Over the last few weeks, as the downloads and views and everything have kind of just risen, how all over the world, and now 35 different countries and almost 200 cities. The episode with Brian Biggerstaff has climbed to the top and is reaching more people than ever before. When I stop and I think about what the Lord is doing, I can see clearly that there's no mistakes, that it's a direction. And I believe that the Lord blesses us in the direction we're supposed to go. We're made uncomfortable in the directions, in the areas that we're not supposed to stay. And that natural nudging in the right direction has led us here. So, Brian, welcome again to the podcast.
It's good to be here, Leon.
It's good to have you, buddy. The obvious question on everybody's mind is, how are you doing? And give us an update.
Doing really well. Back in Back in August, I celebrated 1,000 days sobriety.
Amen.
November 27th, I will be celebrating 3 years sobriety.
My goodness.
It's what I tell people. It took me longer to get 1 day sober than it did 1,000 days sober.
Man.
And it was just relapse after relapse after relapse. But, and I got to give a lot of thanks to God and to my support system, the program that I work. Mm-hmm. And I think we touched on it. I grew up in a Baptist church, not far from here. And I think you know which church it was. But to sit and say, it's hard to explain it. The church that I grew up in was what I call hellfire and brimstone church. Mm-hmm. And to have someone that grew up that way and they became an alcoholic. You know, I was kind of the black sheep, but I was very ashamed of it for a long time. I was ashamed that I'd been to rehab, that I've been rehab multiple times.
Yeah.
But it's made me a better person today, and we'll get into that further on.
Well, I'm glad that you are back. It's sometimes I think we lose sight of the things that we get to see every day. I've been on this weight loss journey, and, oftentimes when we get on weight loss journeys or even any kind of regimen, we expect to see immediate gratification and kind of in this, fast food mentality that we have. We expect, I ought to have a 6-pack by Monday, and all of that. And it's easy to kind of get lost into that mentality. When I see the progression that you make, it reminds me, I get to see it, from a front row seat, but, it reminds me, sometimes you probably don't see the progression like someone on the outside would see the progression. But I think where I'm going with this is, what would you say to the family member who may see the progression, but it has that person who can't get that 1 day clean or can't get 5 days clean, you know, and what would you say to them that would probably bring them comfort in that situation, viewing it from the outside in from a person who's been the addict?
For me, it was always, it's not about the fall. It's about getting back up.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in that cycle, it's hard to see that when you're on the inside looking out. For years, I thought I was just the biggest loser, that I'll never amount to anything. And I think social media really affected me, and it affects everyone, mm-hmm. because we only see on social media what someone wants us to see.
Yeah.
And I was very ashamed of myself. But I'll give you for instance. The first day that I ever walked into rehab was back in 2019. That was one of my lowest days. I felt defeated, felt broken, and it took me probably about halfway through a 30-day stay in rehab to realize that it's really takes a lot of courage to do what I done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that will never have the courage to go to rehab. But it's what a lot of family members are saying, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
My sister couldn't save me. My parents couldn't save me. My kids couldn't. Nobody could save me until I tried to save myself.
Yeah.
And that was to get help, to mm-hmm. realize that I was powerless over alcohol and my life had become unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, I knew that I had to do something. And I reached out, went to rehab.
What'd that sound like in your head? Like saying, I need help. I can't do this on my own. What that in Brian Biggerstaff's brain, what does that process sound like?
In the beginning, the first time, it was, if I don't do something, I'm going to die. And I feared death.
Yeah.
And I knew there was no other way. So it was, there was a whole lot of defeat in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still at the point that I was worrying about what everyone else was going to think. I'm sure, because, you know, we knew each other back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that you probably heard. And I know I had a lot of people pulling for me. But there's always those people that's waiting on you to fail again.
Yeah.
And those is the ones that I worried the most about. But even when I went and when I left after 30 days, I was still trying to do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I was still that hard-headed. And I heard the 3 words that I hate the most right before I left. You got this.
Mm.
I hate for someone to tell me I got this, because I get in my own head and think, yeah, I've got this.
Yeah.
And that's usually when it gets gone with me, gets away. But rehab for me was 5 months later, I was back there again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after, and I'm AA, so there's 12 steps. I was trying to pick them apart. I was, it wasn't until the second time that I realized that, you know, for me, I had to have 2 different programs. One was God,
mm-hmm.
and one was the program of AA. After I done rehab for the second time, I came out and I worked the program. I was going to church, and I was doing everything the right way, and I stayed sober for over 2 years. And then, and I think I told this story before, and you know my story here. In 2022, March 8th, that's when my world turned upside down. I got a call. I'd actually worked night shift. Woke up and I had about 50 missed calls on my phone. The last person that had called me was my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called her back. She said, "Are you at home?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just waking up." She said, I'm coming upstairs now at the apartment I was living in. My sister walked in and she told me, she said, "Brian, I'm so sorry to tell you this. Connor's passed away." Hardest thing that I ever had to go through.
Yeah.
But that day, I gave up on God.
Mm-hmm.
I gave up on the program. And I think I knew I was going to relapse. And I made it from March until about June. And I actually did relapse. People talk about rock bottom. You got to hit rock bottom. For me, rock bottom always has a trap door.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a worse rock bottom. Had a job of 16 years, lost my job, and I knew I was going to lose everything that I owned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I made the decision I was in a state of despair.
Yeah.
And when you're in a state of despair, there's almost no hope. But I found out on the other side of despair, there is hope.
Yeah.
So I went to California for a year and worked on me.
Yeah.
I went for my kids, but mostly for me.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to do something completely different. So I said, I'm going to go to California for a year. Done 30 days, done an IOP program, ended up working for the IOP program. And after a year, I knew it was time to come home. I made 2 phone calls when I came home. One was to a good friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Told him I had no place to stay. He said, "You got a place here." Second one was another good friend of ours. "I need a job. I'll start working on it." And my life has just got progressively better.
Yeah.
Ever since I've come back from California.
How important do you think it was that, and let me set this up, for the person who is like, man, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've stepped back, I've looked inside, I looked outside, and I'm in this circle, this progressing circle, and it just seems like it's, I'm turning a corner and then I'm right back where I was. And when you say, I tried this here, and then I knew I needed to do something totally different. And that was on the other coast, because we're in South Carolina. If you can't tell, we're not West Coasters, but for you knew I have to pull myself out of the current environment and get as far away as possible or somewhere different and do something different and then establish a route. How did that thought process go, and how do you feel like that helped where being here didn't, and explain that?
Well, I went to a rehab here in South Carolina twice. Mm-hmm. And I just knew that there was nothing else I was going to get out of it. So I had to take myself completely out of my element. I was sitting around one night, and yes, I was actually drinking at that point. but I knew that I was going to take and do something.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I've got to get as far away as I can for right now. Where's that? California. So that sparked the thought, and that got the ball rolling. I got on the internet, started looking up treatment facilities in California. Made a phone call that night. The guy that I talked with, and I'm not going to say where I went, but he said, we can get you a flight tonight. This was about 3 days before Thanksgiving. The only person that knew about all this was my sister. And I said, no, I think I'm on a date and do Thanksgiving with my family. If I'm going to be gone for a year, I want to do Thanksgiving with my family for a year. Back on March 8th, when my sister had told me, she took me to my ex-wife's house. My daughter came outside and hugged me. Mm. And she whispered to me, she says, I've lost Connor. I can't lose you too. Mm. Wasn't long after that, she had tried to make me promise that I'd never drink again. And I told her, I said, I can't make that promise, but I can promise you that I'm going to try. Mm-hmm. So the next day I took her out to eat, and I sat her down, and I told her I've already made the plans to go to California. And I said, Sydney, remember that time when I said I can't promise that I'll never drink again? I said, well, this is why I didn't make that promise. And I explained to her what was going on. I told her, I said, I've relapsed, and I've got to go away for a year. And she was very supportive. Mm-hmm. She cried, I cried. And, she told me how proud she was of me.
Yeah.
So fast forward to Thanksgiving. Like I said, the only person other than my daughter Sydney that knew about it, my son Jace knew about it. But I talked with my sister, and she supported me 100%. Mm-hmm. So we had Thanksgiving with my parents, family, and after the meal, we was all sitting around, and I just let everyone know. I said, I've relapsed, and I'm going to California to work on me for a year. At that point in time, I had no plans on how I was going to take and stay out there for a year.
Yeah.
But I prayed a lot about it. God, if this is your will.
Yeah.
And I see that picture behind you, and I think about this a lot. Mm-hmm. And what got me to that point was surrender. I finally surrendered to this addiction and said, I've got to do it again. I need to go to rehab.
It makes me think of two things: strength and weakness. We as people, we like to think we've got this, similar to what you said, hey, I've got this. I can do this. I've got all this power and this strength and this mental fortitude and I've got the support network and I've got this and I've got that and this power within me and all of that. There's a tremendous amount of strength in being able to affirm in oneself. But at the same time, you're setting yourself up to be victim of your weaknesses. And I think that the proof in that is when you think about, when you think about this picture behind me, it makes you realize just how strong God is, how we have to recognize that we need a Savior, that we have to recognize that we can't do it all on our own, that we recognize that we couldn't save ourselves. And there's only one decision. And that decision is yield. It takes a tremendous amount of strength to just say, I'm done and I need help. And, to hear it from somebody who's been there, I'm certain is going to be medicine for somebody. So I'm not going to say that we're on the other side of your problem. I'm not going to say that, because I know that it's a daily decision, a conscious effort. This isn't like hey, I made it one more month. It's each day, which is why you said I made it to 1,000 days and celebrated that 1,000 days. Tell me about the walk, how each day is its own celebration, and how someone maybe can get it in their head that decision, that conscious effort every single day to push forward to the next day.
Us as addicts and alcoholics, and you see it on TikTok a lot, someone celebrating days. Mm-hmm. And we wonder why they say days. What's 28 days? But to get one day sober is such an accomplishment. And that's, in AA, they pass out chips, 30 days, 60 days. And some people, that means a lot to them. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said 1,000 days, But getting to that point, like I said, I've never, since I took my first drink, been 1,000 days sober. Even when my alcoholism wasn't a problem like it was in later years. Mm-hmm. So the first 30 days is the easiest when you go to rehab, because you're in there with a bunch of sober people.
Yeah.
You're not around alcohol or drugs. It's easy to be sober there. The real work begins when you walk out that door.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's as scary as the first day they got there, because they know that's when the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
And they got to hold themselves accountable. The relapse rate is about 80%. So where I was at, there was 12 clients there. And that's 9.6 people, 80%. So we're going to round up to 10. So that's 2 people out of 12 that's going to stay sober.
Yeah.
Once I left rehab, I went to another program. It's called an IOP program. Inpatient. It's almost like a step down from inpatient. Mm. And you go to a class 6 hours a day. I was living in a sober living home out there in California, going to IOP. I wasn't working yet because I knew I still needed to work on me. Mm-hmm. I was going to meetings, and once I got 60 days sober, I guess that's when I really started getting humble. Mm. I had a whole lot of humility, and I was very humble because I knew what I was capable of.
Yeah.
And what I'm capable of is relapsing at any point in time. So we take and celebrate one day at a time. We take it one day at a time.
How important is humility in this process?
Oh, it's very, I was a very prideful person before. For instance, my daughter told me one time, said, "Daddy, I've never seen you cry." And I was proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
Us as males, especially here in the South, we take a lot of pride in being manly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until probably I moved out to California, and I remember exactly when. I was staying in a sober living home, didn't have a car, didn't have a job, and I had to walk to a grocery store out there about 4 blocks away. And I'm walking back holding 2 or 3 bags in each hand. And I'm watching these cars go by. And I'm sitting there thinking, all these people's just living normal lives. They going to work, going home. And here I am walking down the street in Pasadena, California. I don't have a home. I don't have a car. I have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was happy. And I knew I was sober. And I felt very humble at that point in time.
Yeah. So here you are. You've just relocated. You've just gone through your 30 days. You've gone through your 60 days. At what point did someone say, "Hey, Brian, will you help us by being, helping us deliver the program or administer the program"? How'd that look? How'd that come about?
So after I completed a 3-month program there, I was offered a job with the IOP program. And I said yes. I was happy to do something because that's what part of the program, helping others, helps me.
Mm-hmm.
Not keeping others sober, but just helping them.
Mm-hmm. So
once I went to work there, I was the director of the sober living homes. In California, I got a certification called a RAD-T where I could actually do programs. Went in, started doing morning groups, morning process groups. Just talking. Some people just need to vent, need to talk. And then I started doing groups. And I knew that this is where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Is helping others. And there was some that was ready to give up. And I don't take any credit for anyone staying sober. But just talking with people, telling them I've been exactly where you've been. And once I started doing groups, I had a passion to help others. Mm. I didn't post a lot about my sobriety, but I had people that reached out to me. People that knew I was out in California. I helped get one person out there. They didn't go to the same rehab I went to, but they went to rehab out there. And matter of fact, they're still living out there in California.
Wow.
Working in the program. So after 60, 90 days, that's where I pretty much progressed to. And I done this for a whole year. But I knew that it was time to come home. Mm-hmm. I got to the point where I felt like I was running from something.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to come back here and establish my life. And I go to meetings now. I lead meetings. I still have people reach out to me. So it still helps me to help others.
Yeah. I think it's humble to say, hey, I need help, but I want to be helped. And I think it's a lot more comfortable for someone, who is going through something to reach out to somebody they know has been there. And I think it's harder for somebody to reach out to somebody who they feel like doesn't have the life experience to speak from. And so I can't say, hey, I've been addicted to anything except for double stuffed Oreos, but, and I'm trying, Brian, I'm trying. But I think that, having access to somebody who I can say, you know what, I know, who would understand is a powerful tool. But let's say there's a conversation that someone needs to have with somebody who they know is suffering from, we'll say, alcoholism. And they want to try to help somebody on the accountability side. And they can tell that this person's bubbling up, getting stressed out, and agitated, irritated, and all those other things. And they are trying to help them by being that person who's just trying to help. How would you coach somebody to be a good accountability partner who doesn't have a history in alcoholism?
It's hard for someone to understand the power of addiction. And I've used this analogy before. What's your favorite cake?
Oh, it's red velvet.
Red velvet.
Hands down.
And is this one that Ashley will make you?
No.
No.
She knows I love it too much.
You ever get to craving red velvet cake?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to get that off your mind once you get to craving it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you've got someone that you could call up that could fix you a red velvet cake.
I've got 3 people.
Three on the hook.
Who won't charge me.
So when you start craving that red velvet cake, it's sitting at work. You make that phone call. I'll have it for you when you get off. Now you're excited.
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait to have that piece of red velvet cake. You've been craving it all day.
Mm-hmm.
You bring it home. You cut. And I'm sure before your weight loss journey, you probably cut a little bit bigger piece.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Double handful, right?
We're not going that deep into it.
But once you have that piece of red velvet cake, that craving's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got the rest of your red velvet cake, but you don't have a craving for it anymore.
Right.
So this is how the mind of an addict alcoholic works. And I'm going to say alcoholic. Once we have that craving, and the craving, and we have a drink of alcohol, it's not like that red velvet cake. That craving intensifies. So then you've got to have more. Got to have more. To where it's become an obsession. There's a saying in AA, one's too many, 1,000's never enough.
Mm.
And that obsession turns into every single day. And it's a full-blown relapse again. I've heard a lot of people, and you've probably heard this yourself, is how can that parent use drugs or alcohol over their child?
Yeah.
They're not. There's nothing this parent would want to do to help their child. There's nothing they wouldn't do. They'd take a bullet for their child.
Yeah.
But this obsession is so overwhelming and so powerful. People's dying every day because of fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
If I took this, and this was laundry detergent, I said, turn that up and drink it. You'd say, are you crazy? But that's what people's putting in their body, is something that they know it can kill them.
Yeah.
I've seen people overdose. I've gave CPR. I've watched someone, and I seen death in their eyes. and they made it back. 3 days later, they overdosed again.
Mm.
This obsession is just so overwhelming, and it's no one that goes through it can wrap their mind around how powerful it is.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you break it? Surrender.
So how do I coach someone from a position of knowing what you, understanding your analogy and understanding your point of view, understanding that, this is somebody who's not making, necessarily, who feels powerless against this and feels like I gotta have it. How does someone say, hold on, what's something, a tool that someone like me could use to say, hold on, let's get your mind on something else or whatever. I don't know how to do it. That's what I'm saying. There's somebody watching who's saying, how can I help?
Helping someone can be hard. I've always used the analogy, move a muscle, change a thought. Get up, go for a walk.
Mm.
Sometimes someone just needs someone to talk to. For loved ones who has a son, a daughter, going through this, a parent, sometimes it comes down to tough love.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I love you, but I'm not giving you any more money. I'm not supporting you in any way.
Yeah.
A lot of people go through interventions. Sometimes that works.
Yeah.
But they've got to understand that I can't help you until you're ready to help yourself.
Yeah.
We can only go so far with this person, but they've got to make this journey on their own.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of parents, they've held this baby since they was born. They fed them, changed them.
Yeah.
They took care of them. That's the nurturing thought of a parent. That's what they still want to do. And sometimes that's the worst thing that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's tough love. The best advice is, and I learned this from my sister, when I was going in my relapses, just binge drinking, she would come sit with me. She'd just sit there on the couch. She wouldn't even talk. My sister's amazing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
She's the greatest. She didn't judge me. She wouldn't browbeat me, telling me, you need to go back to rehab.
Yeah.
You're going to die. This. She just showed love just by sitting there. And when I did call her and tell her, she said, I'm proud of you. She still tells me she's proud of me.
Hmm.
She's a great support system. Sometimes a lot of addicts just want to know that they're still loved.
Yeah. I think if I was to put into words the amount of encouragement that I've received from people in this life, and I'm 46 years old, I think, somewhere around there. And, once you're over 45, you don't have to keep track anymore. You just kind of round it wherever.
I'm getting close to 45.
Are you? But in these 40 plus years, 46 years, we'll just say 46, I can count probably, 20, 30 people in this entire life that have been encouragement. And I'm talking like unadulterated, unbridled, just pure, encouragement. And for those of you out there who feel like I've tried, everything up to including cutting this person off, and where do I go next? You just heard it first. Don't go anywhere. just don't enable. And I think that was probably, I didn't even know, but that was confirmation I needed, because I've been there where I've had to coach people and counsel folks, from a pastoral, perspective, and hearing, and telling these people, look, you're going to have to be this side of enabling and stay this side. How important is that? I mean, if you were to look back and I'm not saying how many people you probably could have saved from, seeing a person overdose or seeing a person drink themselves into oblivion or something like that. But just in your perspective, how important is it, that folks hear the words, don't enable them, love them, but don't enable them?
For the loved ones, that's one of the most important things is do not enable them. Addicts and alcoholics are some of the best con artists around. I can pull at your heartstrings if I want to, and I can still do it.
Yeah.
Just, you help me out. I don't have any money until I get paid next week.
Yeah.
Just to get enough money to go to the liquor store. I don't need to go panhandle. I know Leon Wilson has a great heart.
Right.
Leon ain't gonna let me go hungry.
I got some red velvet cake for you.
But it's when I come back to Leon again and I'm still giving the same sob story.
Yeah.
I'm broke again, Leon. Okay, here. Well, this is easy. Leon just keeps giving me money.
Right.
I'm getting this money. I'm going to the liquor store. Let's see if he'll do it a third time. There's got to be a place where you cut the loved one off.
Mm-hmm.
You can meet them so far, but they've got to take that next step. They're on their own.
Now, let me ask you this: Has anyone been that person to you?
Yes.
And since admitting that, and I'm not saying, you got to go into brutal details or anything, Brian. I know that you have a purpose, and that purpose is wrapped up in a beautiful mission that God has put you on. And oftentimes we go through situations, and the Lord allows us to fall and fall and fall and fall and fall, and doesn't have to tell us what we're tripping over, because we know plain and well. But on the receiving end of that tough love, do you appreciate that now in hindsight way more than that it made you mad in the moment?
Oh yeah, very much so.
And how do you, like right now, what are you thinking?
I still need tough love, and it ain't because of alcohol. And my supervisors at work sometimes have to show me tough love. I'm far from perfect, and you can elaborate on that if you want. But I mean, there's been times when you've had to walk out there and have a talk with me.
Yeah.
So I'm always growing, and there's things that I still need to work on. But talking about tough love is, I've had to do that with people that's been in the program.
Mm-hmm.
People that I know have relapsed. Not going to send you money, but here's my phone number. Call me. We'll talk. They don't want that right now.
Mm-hmm. I remember one time seeing I think it was at a McDonald's, where offering somebody some food, who was standing outside, and them, being disappointed that I wanted to give them food instead of money. And I know how it feels to feel shame. But it behind the eyes of this person who is disappointed that they got food, essentially love. I'm disappointed in the love you're giving me. I really wanted you to support, what I want to do, or what I long to do. I think when you see these people, when you see someone like that, does it kind of, is there somewhere in there where you're kind of seeing the old you?
Oh, definitely. Going through DTs is some of the worst pain in the world, even with alcohol. So seeing where they're at, remembering that I was there, it's sad. And it has crossed my mind before. Get them some alcohol. Get a little bit in them. And then get them to detox. A lot of detox facilities will tell you, don't stop drinking until you come. Last time I went to rehab, I had to detox myself. And that was hard. Going through detox at home alone. So, yeah, my heart breaks for them when sometimes all they need is just a little something to help calm them down. There's times when I would wake up in the mornings and I was so bad, shaking. That's the first thing I had to go to. Alcohol. Just to get the shakes out so I could go move through the rest of my day.
Yeah.
Normal.
So you and I had talked the other day when I asked you, and you've been putting me off. I winked at him if you didn't see it. When I asked you, hey, are you ready to come back and go for another round? And you had said, there's some things I want to cover. And I said, okay, and Brian, I know that, you got a great heart and you want to help folks and you want to, you've got good, bad, and the ugly stuff going on, and I know that there are folks out there who need to hear that. So I'm going to turn this over to you next 5-10 minutes, whatever it takes. I just want you to, to just let your heart out, just pour it out, whatever's on your mind.
Okay. (2019) I'd been in jail, done a lot of bad stuff. Thought I was a terrible person. There's people out there today, and I guess this has been on my heart a lot here lately. And I'm gonna go ahead and just skip to this. I have a 22-year-old daughter. And she's estranged from me right now because she got tired of me breaking her heart. And when I went to California, there was a young girl that came out there from Tennessee. And I think I told you a little bit about her. She went out there to get clean. But she wasn't taking anything serious. And she eventually went back home. Beautiful young lady. She got pregnant out in California, had a beautiful baby. Found out about a week and a half ago, someone sent me her obituary. That was a hard one to swallow because she had everything. Had a great future ahead of her, and she relapsed. Sorry. Just be there for the ones that's struggling. I don't know if you know anyone that's struggling, but just be there for them to talk with them, support them. But I think I've said about everything I was going to say that I said I wanted to say.
I appreciate it. Here's, I guess, the big question that I have is, what is Brian Biggerstaff's prayer?
For me, it's pray hardest when it's hardest to pray. And this is all, and what I mean by that was the times that I sat in jail, it was easy to pray.
Mm-hmm.
When I was laying in the floor, detoxing myself, it's easy to pray. When life is good, when you just got a new job,
mm-hmm.
when you're about to get a new loader, when you just got a raise, you got a new truck, that's the hardest time to pray. And that's my prayer, is pray hardest when it's hardest to pray. When everything's going great, pray then.
Yeah.
For me, my prayer life was always the first thing that slipped. And then I started laying out of church. Walk as close to God as possible. And it's who you put in your life around you. For me, it's someone that I can take and go to at work and talk to. It's the people that encourage me. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah.
When you leave rehab, if nothing changes, you're going to go back to those old ways. I left rehab, and there's this place here in Spartanburg that's very popular. And in my mind, first time I left rehab, I went back, and it's a restaurant and a bar on one end. And that's where I would go and sit and drink every night. So when I got out of rehab, I went and sat there and eat. I was drinking a glass of sweet tea. Nothing changed in my life. I was going around the same people, same places, doing the same things. Just wasn't drinking, but I did. I ended up having one drink. Then I left. I was proud of myself. I got this.
Mm.
Next time I went in there, a few days later, had 2 drinks. I think I still got this. But eventually it became every night thing. (2015) February 12th, 1:08 p.m. I'll go back up just a little bit that day. I was having a really bad day. I was arguing with my mom. One of my kids was sick. She had come over and got my kids. I was passed out. When I woke up, she was giving me down the road, hammering me big time. And I've been going to a church not far from here. Been getting a little bit of conviction. So I got in my truck and I pulled to the end of the driveway. And I said, I've got to do something different. I was either going to turn right, go to the liquor store. I was going to go turn left and go talk with someone. So I called the preacher up. I said, I got to come talk to you. He's like, well, how about if we just talk Wednesday nights? You come Wednesday and we'll talk right before church. I said, I can't. I said, if I don't, I'm going to die before then. He said, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Went in and sat down with him. I told him I'd been fighting conviction. He said, well, what do you want to do? And I grew up in church and I knew what I needed to do. So 108, I got saved. And I knew I'd made professions of faith before. Been baptized 5-6 times. I jumped to the front of the line one time and when I was getting baptized just so I could get out of there sooner to go to a party. But that day I knew something was different. I started calling people and telling them I'd got saved. I started making changes in my life. Prayed constantly. But then I started missing church here, missing church there. Not praying in the morning when I woke up. Just pray before I go to bed. It just got easier and easier. And I went right back to where I was at. Relapsed. This was 2015. I hadn't even admitted even to myself that I was an alcoholic. But in 2019, I admitted I was an alcoholic. And that's when I started getting my prayer life back. It didn't come back immediately. And it was on because of me, not because of God.
Yeah.
But once I finally relapsed, I knew what I needed to do.
Brian, I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate you opening your heart up. I appreciate you being candid, honest, open, transparent. And we got to get you back. For you at home, you driving down the road, you working and listening to the podcast, shout out to my daughter who's binging the podcast currently. And that means so much to me. But those of you who have heard, those of you who have stayed this long, those of you who are hanging on every word because you need all the hope you can get right now, you just heard it from the horse's mouth. That the prayer life, that the hope that you find in God, that the hand of God that you hold is not a hand that's going to hold you down. And just like the picture that's behind me, the hand of God is all the hope that we need. We find it through the blood of Jesus Christ. Hands down, that's the answer. But first things first, just like when you get saved, you have to come to the knowledge and the fact and come to grips with the whole truth that you are a sinner and that you need a Savior. You want to enter into heaven, you can't do it other than the blood of Jesus. And the price is already paid. So now that you've got the gospel, the other side of that is, how do you get past the problem that is inside your mind, that is inside you? That is that longing for a drink, or longing for a drug, or longing for food. Longing for people's acceptance, longing for all those things that only fill a temporary void that is a God-shaped void in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit. And without that tangible relationship with God, you are a person trying to get past a problem that has a spiritual root. And that's what I've learned tonight. That's what I've learned during this podcast. And you've seen what a day of victory is. And you've seen what 1,000 days of victory is. And you've seen what a day means to somebody when they can celebrate it. Today is the day of your salvation. And to those of us who have someone in our life that we're trying to help, help is always going to work when you can give hope. And sometimes hope, to what Brian said, is someone in the room who wants to love you. Listen, I love you. God loves you. This has been the Unqualified Podcast with Leon Wilson.